Picture this. It's late, the world's gone quiet, and the shadows in your room seem to shift just a little too much. Welcome to a journey where the ordinary twists into the terrifying, where a creak in the dark or a stranger's glance becomes something you'll never forget. I'm bringing you 18 true horror stories, each one a chilling slice of real life that'll make your skin crawl and your heart race. From a house that whispers secrets to a bus ride that leads nowhere good. These tales aren't just spooky, they're the kind of nightmares that linger, making you question what's real. Why listen? Because fear is a thrill, and these stories, drawn from those who lived them, will hook you tight. Whether it's a child's voice in an empty home or a figure vanishing into fog, each tale builds a world of dread you can't escape. So dim the lights, grab a blanket, and let's dive into the unknown together. Trust me, you won't look at the dark the same way after this. Ready for the first shiver? Here it comes. Have you ever walked into a place and felt like it was watching you? That's what hit Emily and Sarah on a crisp fall evening outside Seattle. Both 21, best friends since high school, they loved chasing adventures. This time, they picked a guy's national park an hour's drive from the city, drawn by rumors of a sunset that could stop your heart. The trail to the lookout promised solitude, a break from their hectic college lives. As they parked, the sky burned orange, casting long shadows through the pines. They found a weathered bench and settled in to watch the sun dip below the horizon. Emily, always the worrier, scanned the empty trailhead. No cars, no hikers, just an eerie stillness. Sarah laughed it off, snapping pics, but Emily's eyes caught something odd. A small wooden statue half buried in the dirt, carved with symbols that seemed to pulse under the fading light. She nudged Sarah. "What's this?" Sarah shrugged, joking about creepy souvenirs. But when Emily touched it, a chill shot through her. The forest went quiet. No birds, no breeze, just a faint hum, like a whisper trapped in the trees. As darkness crept in, Emily shoved the statue into her pocket, uneasy. She didn't know it yet, but that choice would unleash something ancient, something that had been waiting in those woods for far too long. The darkness swallowed the trail, as Emily and Sarah hurried back, their footsteps crunching on pine needles. Sarah's phone flashlight flickered, barely cutting through the fog rolling in from nowhere. Emily's heart raced. She swore the trail had been straight before, but now it twisted, looping back to a gnarled oak they'd passed twice. "Sarah, this isn't right," she whispered, clutching the statue in her pocket. Its edges felt sharper, almost alive. Sarah forced a grin. "Chill, Em. We're just turned around." But her voice cracked when a low growl echoed from the trees. They picked up their pace, the forest closing in. Emily glanced back, expecting nothing, but froze. A pair of glowing eyes hovered in the distance, not animal, not human, just wrong. "Sarah, run!" she hissed. The growl turned into a rhythmic thud, like footsteps chasing them, but too fast, too heavy. Sarah tripped, her phone skidding into the dirt. Emily yanked her up, her own breath ragged. The air grew thick, heavy with a smell like wet earth and decay. As they stumbled forward, the trail seemed to shift, roots curling up to snag their feet. Emily's mind screamed, "It's not just following us, it's hurting us." Then, a sharp crack split the air, and the glowing eyes vanished. For a moment, silence. But Emily's relief died when she saw it. The same carved symbols from the statue, scratched into a tree trunk, glowing faintly. Sarah grabbed her arm, voice shaking. "What the hell did you pick up, Em?" Emily didn't answer. She couldn't. Deep down, she knew. Whatever was out there wasn't just in the woods. It was in her pocket, in her head, and it wasn't letting go. They bolted across a rickety bridge, the thud of pursuit shaking the boards beneath them. Emily's lungs burned, but she didn't dare look back. The thing, whatever it was, felt closer, its presence like a weight pressing on her chest. Sarah's sobs mixed with curses as she fumbled her phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. "Help us!" she screamed, voice breaking as the signal crackled. The forest fought them every step. Branches lashed their faces, vines snaked around their ankles. Emily's hand brushed the statue, now burning hot in her pocket. She yanked it out, ready to throw it, but stopped. The symbols glowed red, pulsing like a heartbeat. A voice, low and guttural, slithered through the trees. "Mine." They burst onto a gravel path, the park's edge in sight, but the thing was right behind them. Emily risked a glance. Tall, impossibly thin, its face a void except for those blazing eyes. It didn't run, it glided, cutting through the fog like a blade. Sarah screamed, "Oh my God, what is that?" Emily had no answer, just terror, raw and all-consuming. A house loomed ahead, its porch light flickering. Emily pounded on the door, her fists bloody. The thing stopped at the tree line, watching, waiting. Its eyes locked on her, and for a split second she saw it, a vision of herself trapped in the woods forever. The statue fused to her hand. She blinked, and it was gone, but the fear stayed. The door creaked open just as the thing took a step closer, its shadow stretching impossibly long across the gravel. A neighbor, an older man, yanked them inside, slamming the door as he called the cops. Emily collapsed, shaking, while Sarah clutched her hand. The police arrived, searched the woods but found nothing. No tracks, no statue, just an empty trail. Emily kept asking herself, if it had caught them, what would have happened? The next day, Emily couldn't stay away. She returned to the park alone, drawn to the bench. Under it, half buried, was a single symbol etched in stone, identical to the statue's carvings. As she stared, a cold wind carried a whisper, "You're mine." She ran, heart pounding, but the truth sank in. She hadn't escaped. Whatever it wasn't done with her. Would you go back to a place that claimed you as its own? The night the family photo fell and shattered, Jacob knew something was wrong in that house. It wasn't just the creaky old Victorian in rural New England where he'd grown up, nor the weight of the past year crushing him. He'd moved back to care for his dad, Robert, after a heart attack left him frail. At 35, Jacob thought he'd seen grief's worst, losing his nephew, Tommy, his brother's kid, in a car accident 6 months prior. But that night, as glass scattered across the hardwood, a chill settled in, deeper than winter's bite. Robert lay in the guest room, oxygen tubes snaking from his nose, his eyes half open but unfocused. Jacob swept up the shards, the photos, faces. His mom, brother, Tommy, staring up like a warning. He tried to shake it off, blaming exhaustion. But then the lights flickered, not once but 3 times, each pause longer, darker. A hum buzzed in the walls, low and uneven, like a voice struggling to break through. Jacob froze, broom in hand, when he heard it. A whisper from the hallway, too faint to catch, but it wasn't his dad's voice. He checked the locks, the windows, even the attic stairs. Nothing. Yet the air felt thick, pressing against his skin. Back in Robert's room, Jacob sat, watching his dad's chest rise and fall. The clock ticked past midnight, and just as he stood to leave, the hum returned, louder, sharper. This time it wasn't in the walls. It was in the room, circling him, and the broken photos frame now on the table trembled as if something unseen wanted out. Around 2 a.m., Robert stirred, his voice a rasp, talking to someone who wasn't there. "Andrew," he mumbled, eyes darting to the corner. Jacob leaned closer, heart sinking. "Andrew, who was that?" His dad's words slurred, but they carried weight, like a confession. "You shouldn't be here," Robert said, not to Jacob, but to the empty air. The room grew colder, the hum now a pulse that matched Jacob's heartbeat. He checked the heater, working fine, but frost crept along the window, tracing patterns like fingers. Jacob asked, "Dad, who's Andrew?" But got no answer, just more murmurs. Robert's face twisted, not in pain, but fear, his hands clutching the blanket as if warding something off. Jacob's eyes flicked to the corner Robert stared at. A shadow lingered, too tall, too still to be a trick of light. He blinked, and it was gone, but the unease stayed. Robert kept talking, words tumbling out about Tommy, Jacob's nephew, who died in that crash. "He wasn't supposed to be there," Robert whispered, tears welling. Jacob's throat tightened. Tommy's death haunted him, the guilt of not being there for his brother's kid. But how did his dad know details no one had shared? The hum spiked, and the photo frame slid off the table, landing face up, Tommy's smile now warped under cracked glass. Jacob backed away, pulse racing. The shadow flickered again, not in the corner but behind Robert's bed, its edges bleeding, into the wall. A voice, not his dad's, hissed, "Ask him!" Jacob spun, searching for the source, but found only darkness. His dad's eyes locked on his, suddenly clear, and he rasped, "Don't let it in, Jake." The words weren't just a warning. They were a plea, and Jacob realized whatever Andrew was, it wasn't just visiting. It was already here. Robert's voice grew louder, frantic, saying Andrew was angry, that Tommy didn't belong there. The air turned thick, like wading through tar, and Jacob's skin prickled as if 1,000 eyes watched him. He grabbed his dad's hand, but Robert pulled away, his nails digging into the bed frame. "He's here," Robert choked, pointing to the ceiling. Jacob looked up. Nothing. But then, a crack split the plaster, slow and deliberate, forming a jagged shape, like a door. The shadow from before poured out, not a shape anymore but a presence, heavy, suffocating. It wasn't Andrew. It was something older, something that used Andrew's name like a mask. Jacob froze, remembering Tommy's crash, a road he shouldn't have been on, a trip no one could explain. The thing pulsed, feeding on his guilt, his questions, and the room shook, books tumbling, the oxygen tank hissing wildly. "Stop!" Jacob shouted, voice breaking. The shadow paused, its edges curling like smoke, and Robert's eyes rolled back, his body arching off the bed. Words spilled from his mouth, not his own. "Give me what's mine." Jacob stumbled, knocking over the photo, and saw it. Tommy's face in the glass, not smiling but screaming. The vision burned into him, and he knew. This thing had been with Tommy that night, and now it wanted more. Jacob lunged for the Bible on the nightstand, a reflex from childhood, and read aloud, voice trembling. The shadow hissed, retreating but not gone. Robert gasped, collapsing, his pulse weak but steady. The crack in the ceiling sealed shut, but the hum lingered, faint, waiting. Jacob held his dad, tears falling, knowing he'd only delayed the inevitable. Whatever this was, it wasn't done with their family. Jacob sat by Robert, who slept, unaware of the night's horror. Dawn broke, gray light spilling through the curtains. The room felt normal again, but Jacob's hand still shook. He called his brother, asking about Tommy's crash, about any Andrew. No answers, just silence, then a choked sob. The question lingered. What was in that room and why did it know Tommy? Jacob searched the house, finding nothing but dust and memories. But in the attic, tucked in a box of old letters, he found a photo. Not Tommy's, but a boy from decades ago labeled Andrew 1953. The face was blurry, but the eyes, they matched the shadows, cold and endless. A note on the back read, "Don't speak his name." Jacob's blood ran cold. Was Andrew a ghost, a demon, or something worse, tied to their family's past? He burned the photo, hoping to end it. But as the flames died, the hum returned, faint, mocking. Robert woke that evening, lucid, but his first words were, "It's not over, Jake." Jacob nodded, staring at the ceiling, now unmarred but heavy with secrets. What do you do when the darkness in your home isn't just a shadow, but a name that won't let go? Ethan didn't believe in ghosts until the radio screamed someone else's voice at 2 a.m. He was driving home after a late shift, the back roads of Oregon stretching dark and empty before him. At 29, Ethan's life was a grind. Long hours at the warehouse, bills piling up, sleep a distant memory. The old pickup's headlights barely cut through the fog, thick as smoke, curling over the asphalt like fingers. The road was desolate, not a soul in sight, just the hum of his tires. Then the radio crackled, flipping from static to a low, guttural voice. "Turn back." Ethan slammed the dial off, heart jumping, but the silence was worse. Heavy, alive. He muttered, "Come on, man. Get it together," blaming exhaustion. But when he glanced at the dashboard, the clock blinked 2:22, stuck, and the air inside the cab turned cold, his breath fogging despite the heater blasting. Something moved in the fog ahead, a flicker too quick to catch. Ethan gripped the wheel, eyes straining. Whatever it wasn't just the road playing tricks, it was waiting for him. And deep down, he felt it knew his name. Ethan shook his head, trying to focus, but the fog seemed to pulse, thicker now, swallowing the road's edges. His truck rattled, the engine stuttering as if fighting the air itself. He pressed the gas, wanting distance from whatever that voice was, but the chill in the cab deepened, his fingers numb on the wheel. Then, a shadow loomed ahead, too sudden, too wrong. A tall figure in a black hoodie stepped into the road, right in his path. Ethan's foot slammed the brake, tires screeching, the truck fishtailing. His chest heaved as he stared, but the figure stood motionless, hood hiding its face, impossibly, still in the glare of his headlights. "Hey!" Ethan yelled, voice cracking but no response, just silence heavier than before. He blinked, and the figure was closer, not walking, just there, inches from the hood. Ethan's pulse roared, his hand fumbling for the gear shift. The figure tilted its head, and for a split second he saw it. Eyes, not human, glowing like embers under the hood. Then, nothing. The road was empty again, no trace of anyone. Ethan sat frozen, his breath ragged, whispering, "What the hell was that?" But the fog answered, curling tighter, and in the rearview mirror a shadow flickered, too close, too familiar. Ethan floored the gas, the truck lurching forward, but the shadow in the mirror didn't fade. It grew, filling the glass. His brakes had stopped the truck just in time, but now he wasn't sure what he'd seen. His hands shook as he checked the locks, the road still empty, yet the air buzzed, electric, like a storm about to break. He drove, faster now, the fog parting only to reveal more darkness. Then, a thud. Something hit the truck's side. Ethan swerved, heart in his throat, but saw nothing. Another thud, louder, and a smear appeared on the windshield. A handprint, too large, fingers too long, pressed from the inside. "No way," he gasped, wiping it, but it stayed, glistening under the dashboard light. The radio screamed again, not words, but a laugh, low and guttural, looping like a broken tape. Ethan's eyes darted to the mirror. The figure was there, not behind but beside the truck, matching his speed, its hood empty except for those burning eyes. He screamed, "Leave me alone!" But the laugh grew, shaking the cab. The handprint pulsed, spreading, and for a moment, Ethan saw it. A face in the glass, not his, not human, smiling. Then, silence. The figure vanished. The handprint faded, but the road felt alive, watching, waiting for his next move. Ethan didn't stop until he hit his driveway, hands white on the wheel. He sat there, heart pounding, wondering if it was human or something else. The fog had lifted, the night clear, but his truck felt wrong, too quiet, too still. He checked the windshield, no handprint, no damage, but a scratch on the door caught his eye. Thin, deliberate, like a signature. The next day, he asked around town about the road. An old bartender, eyes wary, mentioned a local tale, a drifter who vanished decades ago, seen only by those driving alone at night. "Don't look in the mirror," he warned. Ethan laughed it off, but at home he avoided his truck. That night the radio in his house flickered on, static hissing, and a voice whispered, "Next time." He still drives that road, but never. At night, never alone. The question haunts him. What wanted him that night? And why didn't it take him? What's worse than seeing something on the road? Knowing it's still out there, waiting for you. Dust hung in the air of the old house, its warped walls barely holding memories of better days. My family arrived in late summer, chasing cheap rent and a clean slate after Dad lost his job. The last house that I lived in with my parents was haunted, and I mean severely haunted. At 16, I was torn between doubt and dread. But the moment we stepped inside, a chill wrapped around me, sharp and personal. It wasn't just the house being creepy. It was like something was in there with us, watching. The staircase creaked, under invisible steps, and the windows rattled even on still nights. Mom called it character. Dad said it was fixable. I wasn't so sure. Our first night, I lay awake, phone glowing, when a thud echoed from the kitchen. A glass in the kitchen fell off the counter by itself and smashed. I crept downstairs, finding shards glinting under moonlight. No breeze, no cat, nothing. My pulse raced as I cleaned up, feeling eyes on my back. It wasn't a one-off either. Stuff like that kept happening. Whispers slithered from the vents, too faint to decipher, and a bitter smell clung to the air, like rot behind the walls. Mom noticed it too, her smiles thinning, but Dad insisted it was just an old house settling. Still, I caught him staring at the shadows once, his jaw tight. Something was waking up, and it knew we were here. The house grew restless. One midnight, a steady drip pulled me to the bathroom. Something used to play with the bathroom tap too, and it wasn't the tap being dodgy or whatever it was, old and stiff. I watched, heart pounding, as the faucet spun on, spraying icy water, then snapped off, the room silent except for my shallow breaths. It was like it was taunting us. In the mirror, my face flickered. Not my eyes, but something darker, staring, back. I bolted, slamming the door, its echo chasing me to bed. By week 2, my childhood dollhouse became its toy. My dollhouse, it used to open by itself when it was latched. I'd wake to find its doors unhooked, tiny rooms rearranged, tables upside down, curtains torn. It creeped me out so bad I hid it in the closet, but it still happened. Mom saw it once, her voice trembling. This isn't right. We stopped using the upstairs hall. A lot of the time, both me and my mom would avoid going upstairs though, because we just get this awful uneasy feeling, a weight pressed there, like stepping into someone's gaze. Small things vanished, my bracelet, Dad's keys, only to reappear in the basement, a place we swore to avoid after finding scratches on its door. Stuff would go missing and turn up, in weird places. Whispers grew louder, weaving my name into their hum, and cold spots trailed me, brushing my skin like fingers. I started writing it down, afraid I was losing my mind. Dates, times, the dollhouse, the smells. The house wasn't just haunted, it was playing a game, and we were pieces on its board. A storm hit one night, lightning splitting the sky, but the real terror was inside. We looked into the hall all at the same time and the keys lifted off the cabinet and fell on the floor like someone had picked them up and dropped them. They floated again, spinning wildly, then crashed, the sound swallowed by a low, wet chuckle from the walls. That laugh, it wasn't human, it was wrong. Mom grabbed my hand, her nails digging in, while Dad cursed, yanking at the front door. It wouldn't open, the knob ice cold and stuck. I sprinted upstairs for my bag, but the hallway warped, lengthening like a nightmare. The air up there, it was heavy, like you were being watched. A door slammed ahead, followed by scratches. Slow, grinding, clawing at my sanity. Then I saw it. There was a crumpled red dress with blue butterflies on it, exactly like what that thing was wearing. It lay on the floor, reeking of mildew, not mine but familiar, tied to the shadow I'd glimpsed before, its gaze hollow. My stomach churned as I backed away, the chuckles growing louder, circling. Downstairs the lights died, plunging us into black. Something was in the house with us, moving. A voice hissed my name, not from one spot but everywhere, slithering inside my skull. Mom was sobbing, clutching a candle. Dad swung a bat at nothing, shouting for it to stop. The air thickened, pressing us down, and I felt it. A mind, vast and cruel, savoring our panic. This wasn't a ghost. It was the house itself, alive, trapping us in its heart. Morning came, gray and quiet. The door clicked open as if the house had tired of us. We ran, leaving everything but our fear. Nothing like this has happened since moving out of that place, and quite honestly, I'm just happy that that place is somebody else's problem now. Our new apartment was small, safe, but the scars lingered. We never talked about it after, but I know it changed us. Mom's eyes darted at shadows. Dad drank more, silent. I threw out my notes, but the dress's smell haunted me, sharp and wrong. I dug into the house's past. Records showed it burned in '47, rebuilt on land, locals avoided. They said something was wrong with that place, always had been. A girl died there once wearing a red dress with butterflies, her death unmarked, her name lost. Was she the shadow? Or a mask for something older, hungrier? I still feel it sometimes, like it's not done with me. At night, faint scratches echo in my dreams. And once, my name whispered through the dark, soft but clear. The house was torn down last spring, yet I wonder, did we escape, or were we released? I don't think I'll ever go back to find out. Some doors stay shut for a reason, but the chill of that place clings to me. A reminder that not every haunt needs a house to live. Cody always walked home the same way, until the streetlights died and something else took their place. It was 2 a.m. in Portland, Oregon, the city quiet except for the hum of distant traffic. At 27, Cody was a night owl by necessity, bartending, At a dive bar, paid the rent, but left him wired and alone on these walks through the city's edge. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt, and the streetlights cast weak pools of yellow across the cracked sidewalks of his neighborhood. He'd taken this route 100 times, cutting through side streets to his apartment, but that night, as he turned onto 32nd Avenue, every light on the block flickered, then went out, plunging the street into a darkness so thick it felt solid. Cody stopped, his breath catching, phone flashlight barely piercing the black. "Power outage," he muttered, but his voice sounded small, swallowed by the silence. No cars, no dogs barking, just a stillness that pressed against his skin. Then, a hum started, low and uneven, like static from a broken radio. Cody's pulse quickened as he scanned the street. Something glinted in the distance, not a reflection, but a glow. 2 points of light, faint, hovering where the sidewalk curved. He squinted, thinking it was a trick of his tired eyes, but the lights moved, swaying slightly, too high off the ground to be human. Cody's stomach twisted. He wasn't alone anymore, and whatever was out there wasn't just passing through, it was watching him, waiting for him to take the next step. Cody's boots scraped the pavement as he backed away, the glow in the distance still swaying, hypnotic, yet wrong. He fumbled for his phone, the flashlight shaking in his grip, but its beam seemed to bend, swallowed by the darkness. The hum grew louder, vibrating in his chest, and the air turned cold, his breath fogging despite the mild night. "No way," he whispered, heart hammering. He'd heard Portland had its weird side, urban legends, ghost stories, but this wasn't a story. This was real. Then he saw them. 2 figures, tall and impossibly thin, moving down the street. They weren't walking, not exactly. Their limbs jerked, too long, bending at angles that made his stomach lurch. Their faces were blank, no eyes, no mouths, just smooth voids where features should have been. Cody's mind screamed run, but his legs wouldn't move, rooted by a fear he couldn't name. The figures glided closer, silent, their shadows stretching, across the pavement, far longer than they should have been. He blinked, and they were nearer, not 10 feet away. The hum spiked, now a chorus of whispers, wordless but heavy with intent. Cody's flashlight caught something, a shimmer on their skin, not flesh, but something slick, like oil reflecting light. He stumbled back, tripping over a curb, and the figures paused, heads tilting as if studying him. "What are you?" he choked, voice barely audible. No answer, just that hum, drilling into his skull. Cody turned, sprinting toward an alley, his pulse roaring. He glanced back, desperate to see if they followed, but they were gone, vanished like smoke. The streetlights flickered back on, weak but steady, and the hum faded, leaving only his ragged breathing. He leaned against a brick wall, hands shaking, and noticed a mark etched into it. 3 jagged lines, fresh, as if clawed by something not human. Cody's skin crawled. They weren't gone. They'd chosen to let him go, and he didn't know why. Cody didn't stop running until he reached his apartment, slamming the door and locking it twice. His hands trembled as he sank to the floor. The mark on the wall burned into his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling they weren't human, that they didn't belong to this world. The hum was gone, but the silence felt worse, like a predator holding its breath. He checked the windows, nothing but the glow of streetlights now steady, mocking his panic. Sleep was impossible. Every creak in the old building sent his heart racing. At 4 a.m., he noticed his phone, dead, despite a full charge before his shift. He plugged it in, but the screen flickered, showing a photo he hadn't taken, a blurry shot of the street. with two faint shapes in the distance, their blank faces turned toward the camera. Cody dropped the phone, his breath hitching. "That's not possible," he muttered. But the image stayed, unerasable. Then, a scratch sounded at his door, slow, deliberate. Cody froze, staring at the knob, which rattled slightly as if tested. The hum returned, faint but growing, seeping through the walls. He grabbed a kitchen knife, backing away, but the air thickened, heavy with a smell like damp earth and rust. The lights dimmed, and in the mirror across the room he saw it. Not his reflection, but them, standing behind him, their void faces inches from his shoulder. Cody spun, knife raised, but the room was empty. The hum stopped, the lights steadied, but his mirror showed a crack now, splitting his own face in half. He stumbled to the door, yanking it open. Nothing outside, just the empty hallway. But on the frame, another mark. 3 jagged lines, identical to the one on the wall. His blood ran cold. They hadn't just seen him, they'd marked him, claimed him, and this was only the beginning. Cody didn't sleep for days, the marks haunting him, the photo still on his phone no matter how many times he tried to delete it. He was terrified, convinced those things were from somewhere else, something beyond our reality. He told a coworker, expecting a laugh, but the guy went pale, whispering about Portland's shadow walkers. Figures seen on lonely streets, never explained, tied to missing hikers in the nearby forests. "Don't go back there," he warned. Cody nodded, but the truth gnawed at him. He hadn't gone to them. They'd come to him. He moved apartments, hoping distance would help, but the hum followed, faint, always at night. One evening, unpacking, he found a scrap of paper in his jacket, not his. 3 jagged lines, drawn in ink that smelled of rust. His new place felt wrong now. The shadows too long, the mirrors too empty. He avoided walking home after dark. Took Ubers, but sometimes in the car's reflection, he'd catch a flicker. A void face, watching, waiting. Cody dug into the city's history, finding old forums about sightings like his, some claiming the figures weren't aliens or ghosts, but something older, tied to the land before Portland was built. No answers, just questions, and the dread that he'd been chosen for a reason he couldn't grasp. He still feels them, out there, watching, their blank faces burned into his mind. Now, every dark street feels like a trap, every hum a warning. What do you do when you've seen something that shouldn't exist and it's seen you back? Rain streaked the bus windows as I headed to my aunt's village, a place I hadn't seen since childhood. At 19, I was there to clear out her cottage after her sudden passing. My aunt's old place always gave me the creeps when I was a kid. The village felt frozen in time, its narrow lanes and stone houses silent under a gray sky. Unlocking her door, I stepped into air thick with dust and something sharper, regret maybe, or worse. I found a weird box under her bed, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. It was heavy, wood blackened as if scorched, and it hummed faintly when I touched it like a pulse. I set it on the table, my fingers tingling. The cottage creaked around me, not from wind but something deliberate, like footsteps pacing above. Something about that box felt wrong, like it was watching me. My phone flickered, its screen glitching as I tried to snap a photo. A chill crawled up my neck, and I swore the shadows in the corner thickened, coiling. This wasn't grief playing tricks. Aunt's house held secrets, and that box was their heart. I couldn't leave the box alone. Its symbols, jagged lines and half circles, seemed to shift when I stared too long. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge, like it was sealed tight. My hands shook as I traced its edges, feeling warmth where it should have been cold. That night I heard whispers coming from it. Not words, but like someone breathing too close. Sleep fled as the sounds grew, a chorus of sighs weaving my name, pulling me back to the table. I sat there till dawn, eyes burning, unable to look away. The cottage changed with the box's presence. Mirrors reflected shapes that weren't mine. Flickers of hands, eyes too wide. The air in the house got heavy, like it was pressing on me. Doors I'd locked rattled softly, and my aunt's old clock ticked backward, its hands spinning wrong. I found scratches inside the box's lid, fresh and deep as if something trapped was clawing out. My dreams turned dark. A figure in the village square, faceless, pointing at me. The box wasn't just wrong, it was alive, and it wanted me to know it. I asked around the village, clutching the box's photo on my glitching phone. The old folks in the village wouldn't talk about it, they just looked scared. A butcher, hands trembling, muttered about cursed things buried long ago. They said my aunt knew something, kept it hidden. Back at the cottage, I found her, journal under a floorboard, pages brittle, ink smudged. She wrote of the box, found decades back, tied to disappearances. People who touched it vanished, their names forgotten. It wasn't just a box, it was something older, something bad. Night fell, and the whispers sharpened into pleas, begging me to open it. I resisted, but the cottage rebelled. Lights sparked, windows cracked, and the floor pulsed like a heart. In the attic I found paintings, faces twisted, all staring toward a sketched box. My aunt's last entry warned, "It chooses you." The air grew thick, my breath visible, as footsteps circled me, unseen but close. The box glowed faintly, its symbols writhing. I wasn't alone anymore. Whatever my aunt hid, it was awake, and it wasn't letting me leave without a price. I burned the box at dawn, its wood screaming as flames ate it. The cottage exhaled, windows fogging, then cleared. I left that place and never went back, didn't want to know more. I moved to the city, far from village whispers, but the weight stayed. That box changed me. I don't sleep right anymore. My dreams replay those symbols, now carved in my mind, and sometimes mirrors flicker, showing not me but it, watching. I tracked down a historian online, desperate for answers. He spoke of relics like the box, vessels for things beyond death, bound to bloodlines. My aunt tried to warn me, I think, but it was too late. My family's name was in old records, tied to the village, to rituals no one speaks of now. At night, my apartment creaks, not like the cottage, but enough to jolt me awake. A shadow moves sometimes, faint, patient. I check locks twice, but deep down I know, doors don't stop what's already inside you. I still hear it sometimes calling my name. The box is gone, but its hold isn't, and I wonder if I'll ever be free. Hannah thought she'd get used to the quiet, but that night, the house started speaking. She lived alone in a small Maine cottage, a new start after leaving Boston. At 30, Hannah craved solitude, but the creaky floors and rattling windows of her fixer-upper felt less charming after dark. Rain pelted the roof, a steady drone that usually lulled her to sleep. But tonight, it carried a weight, like the air itself was holding its breath. Around 3 a.m., a sharp knock at the door jolted her awake. Her eyes snapped open, heart thudding as she lay still, waiting for it to repeat. 3 more knocks, slow and deliberate, echoed through the house. Hannah sat up, blankets pooling around her, and grabbed her phone. No signal, just the time glaring. 3:13. "Who's out there?" she whispered, more to herself. But the silence that followed was worse than the noise. She slipped out of bed, floorboards cold under her feet, and crept to the living room. The front door loomed ahead, its frosted glass dark, unyielding. Hannah hesitated, then peered through the peephole. Nothing but rain-slicked steps and shadows. Her breath fogged the glass, and for a moment, she swore the mirror across the room, dimmed, its surface cloudy as if something stood between her and her reflection. She blinked, and it was clear again, but the unease stayed, coiling tighter. Whoever or whatever knocked wasn't just passing by. It wanted in. Hannah's hand hovered over the doorknob, cold seeping through her fingers. She checked the peephole again. No one there, just the empty porch. Rain lashed the windows, blurring the world outside, but she swore she heard footsteps, faint, retreating into the storm. "Get a grip, Hannah," she muttered, forcing a laugh, but it sounded hollow. She flicked on the porch light, its weak glow revealing nothing but puddles and leaves plastered to the steps. Back inside, the house felt smaller, the shadows sharper. She grabbed a flashlight, sweeping it across the living room, half expecting something to lunge from the corners. Nothing, just her unpacked boxes, a silent TV, the mirror now reflecting her pale face too clearly. But as she turned, a creak came from the hallway, not the house settling, but deliberate, like weight shifting on wood. Her pulse spiked. She called out, "Hello?" No answer, just the rain's relentless drum. Hannah followed the sound, flashlight trembling, to the kitchen. The back door was locked, untouched, but a chill hung in the air, unnatural, like a draft from nowhere. She swung the beam down, and her breath caught. Wet footprints glistened on the floor, starting at the front door, weaving through the house. They weren't hers, too large, bare with an odd shape, toes too long, edges smudged as if melting. Her stomach twisted. Someone had been inside, silent, while she stood at the door, and they hadn't left, or they didn't need to. Hannah's flashlight shook as she followed the footprints, each step a violation of her space. They led straight to her bedroom, stopping right at the foot of her bed. The beam caught her rumpled sheets exactly as she'd left them, but the air was wrong. Thick, heavy, like breathing through a mask. Her heart pounded so loud she barely heard the rain, now a faint hum beyond the walls. She knelt, shining the light under the bed, nothing but dust. But as she stood, the mirror across the room flickered again, not reflecting her, but a shadow, tall and formless, its edges bleeding into the glass. "No," she gasped, stumbling back, the knife from the kitchen now in her hand, useless against whatever this was. The footprints gleamed, still wet, as if freshly made, and a low whisper curled through the room. Not words, but a sound that clawed at her mind, saying stay. Hannah ran to the living room, grabbing her phone, but the screen stayed black, dead. The knocks came again, not from the door but the walls, rhythmic, circling her. She spun, flashlight catching a glint by the bed, a scrap of paper old and yellowed with a single symbol, sharp and jagged, drawn in ink that smelled of decay. Her blood froze. This wasn't a prank, not a burglar. It was something older, something that knew this house better than she did, and it wasn't leaving. Hannah spent the night in her car, knife clutched, too scared to go back inside. She was terrified, wondering who or what had walked into her home. Dawn broke, gray and cold, and she forced herself to return, finding the footprints gone, the paper vanished, the house silent. But the mirror stayed cloudy, its surface smudged no matter how she cleaned it. She called a locksmith, got new deadbolts, but the unease lingered. A neighbor, an old woman with wary eyes, saw her scrubbing the porch and muttered about the house's history. Tenants who left in the night, Stories of knocks that never stopped. "Some things don't leave," she said. Hannah laughed it off, but at night she heard it again. A faint tap, not at the door, but her bedroom window, where a new symbol now scratched the glass. Hannah searched online, finding whispers of Maine's old tales, entities tied to forgotten places, drawn to the lonely. No answers, just dread, and the certainty that she'd brought nothing here. It was already waiting. She still checks the locks every night, heart racing, knowing something stood at her bed. The house isn't hers anymore, not really. What's worse than a stranger in your home? One that never leaves and knows where you sleep. The letter arrived on a crisp autumn morning, its wax seal cracked but intact, addressed to me in spidery ink. I was 22, scraping by in a city apartment, when it invited me to a weekend retreat at an estate I'd never heard of. Clavern Manor. My friend got a weird letter asking her to some old house for a weekend. Curiosity won out. I packed a bag and drove 3 hours to a fog-draped valley where the manor loomed, its spires clawing at the sky. Something about it felt off the moment we got there. The gates groaned open, and my tires crunched gravel as I parked among unfamiliar cars. Inside, a dozen strangers milled about, all clutching similar letters, their faces uneasy. The place was huge, all dark wood and shadows, like it was watching us. A chandelier flickered above a grand staircase, casting jagged shadows that seemed to move on their own. The host, a pale man with hollow eyes, welcomed us, his voice too smooth, promising answers by Sunday. My room's lock felt flimsy, and the air carried a metallic tang, like old coins. As I unpacked, a faint hum vibrated through the walls, not mechanical but alive. It wasn't just creepy, it was wrong. This wasn't a retreat, it was a summons, and I'd walked right into it. Dinner was tense, the table set with dusty crystal. The food tasted weird, like it was off, but everyone ate. Anyway, I chewed slowly, my stomach uneasy, as the host spoke of Clavern's history, built on a plague burial, its owners lost to madness. They said the house had rules, like don't go in the basement. His smile didn't reach his eyes, and when I asked about the letters, he deflected, urging us to explore. I noticed a guest's hand tremble, her fork clattering. The hum grew louder, now a pulse in my bones. Afterward, I wandered the halls, portraits staring down with warped faces. The walls felt alive, like they were breathing. A locked door rattled as I passed, and laughter, sharp, childlike, echoed from nowhere. I found a library, its shelves crammed with books and tongues I couldn't read. But one journal caught my eye. It detailed guests like us, arriving every decade, none leaving. My breath hitched as I read my name, written in fresh ink. Something was in that house with us, picking us off. The lights dimmed and a scream tore through the manor, not human but desperate. I clutched the journal, heart pounding, knowing we weren't alone. Midnight brought chaos. The scream's echo lingered as we gathered, counting heads. 2 guests, gone. The doors wouldn't open, like the house wanted us trapped. I tried my phone. It was dead, screen black. The host was missing, his chair empty, but his voice crackled through an unseen speaker, calm, urging us to play the game. It wasn't a game, it was hunting us. Shadows stretched unnaturally, pooling in corners, and the hum became a growl, shaking the floor. I led a group to the attic, hoping for an exit. The air up there was thick, like it hated us. Old trunks spilled photos of people like us, their eyes scratched out. A mirror reflected not our faces but theirs, mouths open, screaming silently. Someone sobbed as the floorboard splintered, revealing claw marks beneath. I found a letter, my letter, now smeared with red. Words changed. "You stay." The walls pulsed and a guest vanished mid-step, her scarf falling empty. Something took her, right in front of us. The growl roared and I felt it, eyes in the dark, ancient, choosing me next. The manor wasn't a house, it was a mouth, and we were its meal. Dawn broke, weak and gray, the doors unlatched, air lightening, as if the manor relented. I ran, one of 4 left, legs burning across the gravel. We got out, but it didn't feel like winning. The valley swallowed the manor's silhouette as I drove away, hands shaking. That place changed me, I see it in my dreams. My apartment feels safe, but mirrors flicker sometimes, showing glimpses. Not me, but them. The lost guests, staring. I searched online, finding whispers of Clavern, a place that feeds on the invited. They said it's still out there, waiting for more. No records listed, but my letter remains, its ink darker now. I hear it sometimes, calling me back. At night my walls hum faintly, not like the manor, but close enough to freeze me. I avoid strangers' invitations, check locks thrice, but fear lingers. What left with me? The manor let me go, but its hunger follows, patient, certain I'll return. I'll never go back, but it knows where I am. Lucas was halfway through the forest when every bird went silent, as if the night itself held its breath. He'd been hiking alone in the Colorado woods, chasing a story for his blog. At 32, Lucas was a skeptic, digging into local legends to debunk them, but the Rockies at midnight tested even his nerve. His flashlight cut through the pines, catching wisps of fog that clung low, twisting like ghosts in the chill air. The trail was rugged, but he knew it well, having walked it before. Tonight, though, the forest felt different. Too still, too watchful. His boots crunched on pine needles, the only sound until a faint hum started. Not wind, but something deeper, vibrating underfoot. Lucas paused, checking his compass. It spun wildly, useless. "Great," he muttered, shaking it, but the needle kept dancing. He pressed on, ignoring the prickle on his neck, until his light caught something ahead, a shape, too tall, too still, standing between the trees. Lucas froze, heart kicking up, his breath fogging in the cold. It wasn't an animal, not a hiker. This was wrong, like a piece of the forest had come alive to stare back. He gripped his flashlight tighter, the beam trembling, knowing whatever stood there wasn't just waiting. It was calling him closer. Lucas steadied his flashlight, the beam locking on the figure. It was a man, standing motionless among the trees, his back to Lucas. He wore a tattered coat too thin for the freezing night, his head slightly tilted as if listening. "Hey!" Lucas called, voice cracking in the silence. No response, not a twitch, not a breath. The hum grew louder, now a pulse in the air, syncing with Lucas's racing heart. He stepped closer, pine needles snapping underfoot, but the man didn't turn. Moonlight spilled through the branches, bright enough to cast shadows, yet the ground beneath the figure was empty. No silhouette, no trace. Lucas's stomach dropped, realizing the man had no shadow. "No way, that's not real," he whispered, gripping his flashlight like a weapon. He circled wide, keeping distance, but the figure stayed fixed, a statue carved from the dark. Then, a whisper slithered through the trees. Not words, but a sound that crawled into his skull, cold and sharp. Lucas swung his light, catching a glint at the man's feet. A pocket watch, old and tarnished, its hands frozen at 3:33. He hadn't seen it before, hadn't heard it fall. His skin prickled as the whisper grew, now a chorus urging him to look. Lucas backed away, pulse roaring, but the forest seemed to tilt, the trail looping back toward the figure, as if it wouldn't let him leave. Lucas's boots skidded as he stumbled back, the watch glinting like an eye in the dirt. He moved closer, heart pounding, but the man vanished right before his eyes. The air snapped cold, the hum now a roar, shaking the trees. Lucas spun, flashlight slashing through the fog, but the figure was gone. No footsteps, no trace, just the watch ticking now, though its hands hadn't moved. He grabbed it, the metal burning his palm, and the whispers surged, sharp, screaming, "Mine." A tree nearby groaned, its bark splitting to reveal a carved symbol, jagged, glowing faintly, like a wound in the wood. Lucas's breath hitched. He'd seen that shape before, in old photos of abandoned mines nearby, tied to stories he'd laughed off. "This isn't happening," he gasped, but the forest answered, branches creaking, bending inward as if alive. His compass spun faster, the needle glowing red, and the trail ahead blurred, twisting into a loop he couldn't escape. Shadows flickered, not one but many circling him, their edges formless yet heavy with intent. Lucas ran, the watch clutched tight, but the whispers followed, now in his head, saying stay. He tripped, flashlight rolling, and in its beam, he saw it. A pair of eyes, not human, burning through the fog, right where the man had stood. Then, darkness and silence, as if the forest had swallowed him whole. Lucas staggered back to his car, the watch still in his pocket, its ticking a faint pulse. He was shaken, questioning what he'd seen, if it was human or something else. Dawn broke over the Rockies, but the forest's weight clung to him, heavy, alive. He checked his blog notes. Nothing about a man with no shadow, but whispers of Colorado's lost miners, figures seen where trails end, tied to symbols like the one on the tree. At home, the watch wouldn't open, its face scratched with that same jagged mark. Lucas tried to write it off, exhaustion, imagination, but his compass stayed broken, needle frozen north, toward the forest. That night, his laptop flickered, showing a photo he hadn't taken. The trail, empty, but with two glowing points. In the distance, watching. He deleted it, heart racing, but the hum returned, faint under his floorboards. Lucas hasn't hiked since, but the forest calls, its pull stronger each night. He still sees it in his mind, that figure, wondering what it wanted. The watch ticks on his shelf, a reminder of something unfinished, something waiting. What do you do when the woods see you first and won't let you forget? The forest smelled of damp earth and secrets as I laced my boots for a solo hike, a birthday gift to myself at 24. My phone's map app had flagged a trail nobody mentioned, hidden beyond the usual paths in Blackthorn Woods. I went hiking alone and found a trail that wasn't on any map. The trees grew denser, their branches knitting a canopy that swallowed the sun, leaving only slivers of light. Something about it felt wrong, like I wasn't supposed to be there. My boots sank into moss that seemed to pulse faintly, and the air carried a sour tang like fruit gone bad. Half a mile in, I spotted a stone marker, weathered and carved with symbols, circles bisected by jagged lines. There was a weird stone thing, covered in carvings I couldn't read. It stood beside a path veering into shadow, unmarked, pulling me like a whisper. My compass spun wildly, needle dancing, and my phone glitched, its screen flickering to static. A twig snapped behind me, sharp and deliberate, but nothing was there. Just silence, heavy and waiting. The deeper I went, the more it felt like something was watching me. This wasn't a trail. It was a lure, and I'd taken the bait. The trail narrowed, roots twisting like veins underfoot. The trees seemed to lean in like they were listening. I clutched my water bottle, its plastic crinkling too loud in the stillness. A hum rose, low and guttural, vibrating through my chest. Not wind, not animals, but something alive in the earth. I heard whispers, not words, just sounds coming from nowhere. They wove my name, soft as leaves falling, urging me deeper. My flashlight flickered, its beam catching shapes, branches or fingers, reaching across the path. I found a clearing, ringed by stones like the first marker, but these were stained, dark and wet. There was a circle of stones and it felt like something bad happened there. In the center, a patch of dirt lay bare, claw marks etched deep, fresh as if just torn. My heart thudded as the whispers sharpened, now voices, dozens, overlapping, pleading or mocking, I couldn't tell. It was like the ground itself was talking to me. My phone buzzed, screen flashing my own face, eyes wrong, too wide, too dark. I dropped it, backing away, but the clearing's edge seemed farther, the trees tighter, like a cage closing. This place didn't just watch, it knew me. Night fell fast, stars hidden by branches. I tried to leave, but the path kept looping back to that circle. My legs ached, breath ragged, but every turn led to those stones, their stains glinting like blood under my fading flashlight. Something was in the woods with me, moving just out of sight. Shadows darted, too quick, too tall, and the hum became a growl, shaking dirt loose from the trees. I tripped, landing hard, my hand sinking into soil that felt warm, pulsing. A voice, not the whispers, spoke, clear and cold. Stay. It wasn't human. It was wrong, like it came from inside my head. My flashlight died, plunging me into black, but the clearing glowed faintly, symbols on the stones pulsing red. I scrambled up, finding my phone, its screen now showing not me, but a figure, hooded, eyeless, smiling. It wanted me to stay, I could feel it pulling me. The ground split, roots coiling around my ankles, slow and deliberate, like hands. I screamed, kicking free, but the air thickened, my lungs burning. This wasn't a place, it was a will, ancient and ravenous, and I was its choice. Dawn crept in, gray and thin. The roots loosened, the growl fading to silence. I ran until I found. The main trail didn't look back. My car was still there, keys shaking in my hand as I sped from Blackthorn Woods. That place changed me. I don't trust the woods anymore. My apartment's bright lights feel hollow. I avoid mirrors, afraid of what they'll show. I still hear it sometimes, whispering my name. The symbols from the stones haunt my dreams, carved behind my eyelids, and sometimes my fingers trace them. On tabletops, unthinking, I searched for answers, digging through forums and old maps. Blackthorn's name tied to vanishings. Hikers, hunters, gone without trace, their gear found in circles. They said something lives there, something old. A ranger's blog mentioned sacrifices, trails that shift, leading only to those stones. It's still out there, waiting for someone else. My phone's photos are gone, replaced by one image, me in the clearing, but not me. My face wrong, smiling, eyes empty. At night my walls creak, not like wood but like roots stretching. I've burned my hiking gear, moved twice, but the whispers follow, patient, certain. I'll never go back, but it knows where I am. The woods let me go, but their hunger clings, a shadow I can't outrun. Emma came home to fix things with her grandmother, but the house had other plans. She'd moved into the old Savannah family home to care for Evelyn, her grandmother, whose memory was slipping away. At 34, Emma was a journalist, used to chasing facts, not ghosts. But the creaky Victorian with its moss-draped oaks stirred something uneasy in her. She'd left Georgia years ago, after her mom's death, promising never to return. Yet here she was, unpacking in a house that smelled of dust and secrets, trying to mend a bond she'd let fray. Evelyn's dementia had worsened, her days a blur of forgotten names and faces. The first night, Emma found her staring at the parlor wall, whispering to someone who wasn't there. "Margaret says you're late," Evelyn said, her voice sharp, eyes clear for a moment before clouding again. Emma froze, heart tripping. "Gran, who's Margaret?" she asked. But Evelyn just smiled, humming a tune Emma hadn't heard since childhood. The house groaned under the humid Georgia air, its windows rattling as if alive. Emma shook it off, blaming jet lag. But when she hung a family photo, her mom, Evelyn, herself as a kid, it slipped from the nail, glass shattering. As she swept the shards, a folded paper fell from the frame, yellowed, with a single line in unfamiliar script. "She knows." Emma's skin prickled. The ink looked fresh, too dark for something decades old, and the air grew heavy, like eyes watching from the shadows. She tucked the note away, telling herself it was nothing. But the parlor chandelier flickered not once but 3 times, each pause darker, colder. Emma checked the bulbs, fine, wired tight, but the hum in the walls didn't stop, low and uneven, like a voice trapped in the plaster. She glanced at Evelyn, now asleep in her armchair, her hands twitching as if reaching for someone. The note, burned in Emma's pocket, its words echoing, "She knows." Knows what? Emma wasn't sure she wanted the answer, but the house seemed determined to give it. Emma's sleep was fitful, the note's words looping in her mind. By morning, Evelyn was chatting with Margaret again, her voice bright, like talking to an old friend. "Margaret says the attic's full of truths," Evelyn murmured, stirring her tea, her eyes darting to the ceiling. Emma's stomach twisted. The attic was locked, its key missing since her mom's time, and Evelyn hadn't climbed stairs in years. "Gran, there's no Margaret," Emma said, forcing a smile, but Evelyn's gaze sharpened. "She knows you. Don't believe her," she replied, and the teacup rattled, untouched on its saucer. Emma busied herself with chores, avoiding the parlor's heavy air, but the house fought back. A photo frame shifted on the mantel, now facing the wall. She turned it right, her mom's face smiling, but the glass felt cold, almost wet. Upstairs, Evelyn's room was worse. The bedside lamp flickered, casting odd shadows, like someone stood nearby. Emma checked the bulb, secure, but the flickering didn't stop, and a faint scratch came from the walls, rhythmic, like nails on wood. She called her brother Mark, hoping for answers. "Gran ever mention a Margaret?" she asked. Silence. Then, "No, but Mom used to talk about someone watching her here." Emma's throat tightened. Their mom's death, a car crash, was ruled an accident, but Mark's voice held doubt, old pain. Hanging up, Emma noticed the note from the frame, now on the kitchen counter, though she'd left it upstairs. Its ink had spread, the words now, "She knows you." That night, Evelyn's whispers grew frantic. "Margaret told me about Uncle David," she said, eyes wide. "He didn't just leave. He took his life in the attic." Emma froze, heart pounding. Uncle David's suicide was a family secret, buried before Evelyn's memory faded. How could she know? "Gran, that's enough," Emma snapped, but Evelyn grabbed her wrist, strong despite her frailty. "Margaret says you're next," she whispered, and the lamp exploded, glass scattering, plunging the room into dark. Emma fumbled for her phone's light, her hands shaking. The air was thick, pressing against her chest, and a shadow moved. In the hallway, not Evelyn's but taller, formless, gliding toward the attic stairs. She followed, drawn despite herself, and found the attic door ajar, its lock broken, though she'd never found the key. Inside, dust swirled under her beam, and a trunk sat open, spilling letters in her mom's handwriting, each signed Margaret. Emma's blood ran cold. This wasn't dementia. Something was speaking through Evelyn, and it wasn't human. Emma clutched the letters, their ink smudging her fingers, the attic air choking her with dust and something sharper. Fear, raw and alive. The house felt wrong, like it was watching, waiting for her to uncover more. She read one letter, her mom's words trembling. "Margaret knows what I did, and she won't forgive." Emma's pulse roared. Her mom had never mentioned guilt, never hinted at a secret tied to this name. The attic stairs creaked behind her, though no one followed. She spun, flashlight catching a mirror propped against the wall, its surface rippling, showing not her face, but a woman's, pale, eyeless, smiling. Emma screamed, dropping the letters, and the mirror cracked, shards, falling like rain. The hum returned, now a wail, shaking the house, and Evelyn's voice called from below, not frail, but commanding. "You can't hide it, Emma." She ran downstairs, finding Evelyn standing, eyes locked on her, unblinking. "Margaret says your mom didn't crash, she ran," Evelyn hissed, revealing secrets no one could know. Emma's world tilted. Her mom's death, a car off a bridge, was no accident. "Stop it," she yelled. But the walls answered, scratching louder, and a photo fell, its frame splitting to reveal another note. "You're hers now." The lights died, plunging the house into black, and footsteps echoed. Not Evelyn's, but heavy, deliberate circling. Emma's flashlight caught a shape in the parlor. Tall, draped in shadow, its head tilted as if curious. It wasn't Evelyn, wasn't human. She backed away, tripping over a rug, and the shape lunged, not touching her, but passing through, leaving, her skin burning cold. Evelyn laughed, a sound not hers, and said, "Margaret's been waiting." Emma grabbed a poker from the fireplace, swinging at nothing, the air thick with whispers now. Guilt, truth, ours. She dragged Evelyn to the car, locking them in, but the engine wouldn't start, and the rearview mirror showed that face again, closer, smiling wider. The notes, somehow in her lap, bled ink, spelling stay. Emma's scream choked off as the car shook, windows fogging with breath not theirs, and she knew. Margaret wasn't just in the house. She was in them, in her, clawing at the secrets she'd buried. Her mom's fights, her own silence, the family she'd left behind. Dawn broke, weak light filtering through Savannah's oaks, but Emma felt no relief. She sat by Evelyn, shaken, wondering if Margaret was real or a ghost of their family's pain. The car had started at sunrise, letting them drive to a motel, but Evelyn was quiet now, her clarity gone, as if Margaret had retreated. Emma's hands trembled, the notes stuffed in her bag, their ink still wet. Impossible. She called Mark again, spilling everything. Margaret, the letters, Mom's death. "Dig into the house," he said, voice tight. Emma did, scouring old records online. The Victorian had a history, tenants who fled, a woman named Margaret who vanished in 1920, her name tied to whispers of a curse, a family debt unpaid. Emma's chest ached. Her mom had hinted at old mistakes but never explained. Back at the motel, Evelyn stirred, muttering, "Margaret's sorry, but she can't leave." Emma's skin crawled. She found a photo in her bag, not hers, but old. showing a woman like the one in the mirror, standing by the house, her smile too wide. The back read, "For Evelyn, always." Emma burned it, the flames hissing, but the hum followed, faint in the motel walls. Emma moved Evelyn to a care home, hoping distance would break the grip. But the secret stayed. She dug deeper, finding her mom's journal in storage, its pages torn save one. Margaret wants the truth. David, me, Emma. The suicide, the crash. Were they choices, or was something pulling strings? Emma stopped sleeping, hearing footsteps in every shadow, seeing that smile in every reflection. She still feels watched, like Margaret's eyes are always there, waiting for her to confess. The house is empty now, but Emma can't sell it. It's hers, like a wound that won't heal. Every night she checks her mirrors, heart racing, knowing some truths don't die. They linger, hungry, calling her name. What do you do when your family's ghosts aren't just memories, but something that knows your every sin? Moonlight spilled through my bedroom curtains, casting jagged shadows across the walls. At 30, I'd moved back to my childhood home after Dad passed, hoping to sort his cluttered study and find peace. The first night I slept there, something felt off. The house was too quiet, not the comforting stillness of memory, but a held breath, like it waited for me to slip. I woke up unable to move, my arms and legs pinned down by nothing I could see. My chest tightened, heart pounding as I strained against invisible chains, my voice trapped in my throat. The air grew heavy, sour with a scent like charred wood. Shadows flickered, not from the moon but something closer, coiling at the bed's edge. It was like something was holding me, pressing on me. My eyes darted, catching a shape, vague, humanoid, its edges blurring into the dark. Sleep had become a battlefield, and this was no dream. I lay there helpless, as the house seemed to lean in, its walls creaking with intent. By morning, I was free, gasping, but the dread lingered. A warning scratched into my bones. This wasn't grief. Something in that house wanted me still. The attacks came nightly, each worse than the last. Every time I fell asleep, it happened again. Couldn't move, couldn't scream. My body was a prisoner, limbs locked as if bound by iron, while my mind raced frantic. It felt like hands were on me, squeezing my throat, choking me. My lungs burned, gasping for air that wouldn't come, as a weight pressed my chest, deliberate, alive. The shape grew clearer, a silhouette with no face, its presence cold, heavy with malice. I stopped sleeping, downing coffee to stay awake, but exhaustion won. The house fed on it, its creaks now laughter, low and wet, echoing from the study. Something was in that house with me, something wrong. I found Dad's old rosary in a drawer, its beads worn smooth, and clutched it, desperate for anything familiar. Shadows danced in mirrors, not mine but hers. A woman, eyes hollow, staring through me. The air thickened with whispers, not words, but intent, promising to keep me. My notes on the attacks filled pages, dates, times, the choking, the shape. This wasn't sleep paralysis, it was a hunt, and I was marked. One night the assault was relentless. I was pinned again, throat closing, like something wanted me dead. The shape loomed, closer, its edges fraying into claws that grazed my skin, icy and real. I could feel it hating me, wanting me gone. My vision blurred, stars bursting as the choke tightened. My pulse a drum in my ears. The house groaned, walls bending inward as if swallowing me whole. In panic, I remember Dad's prayers, words from childhood masses. I started whispering a prayer, the only thing I could think of. My voice trembled, barely a breath, but the rosary burned hot in my hand, grounding me. It was like the words pushed it back, loosened its grip. The shape hissed, a sound like steam escaping, and the pressure eased, my limbs twitching free. I gasped, coughing, as the silhouette retreated, dissolving into shadows. The air cleared, the sour stench fading, but my skin crawled, marked by its touch. I sat up, clutching the beads, knowing I'd fought something ancient, something that didn't forgive. The house was quiet, but it wasn't done. It was waiting. I left the house at dawn, rosary in pocket, refusing to sleep there again. I got out, but it didn't feel over. A cheap motel became my refuge, its neon buzz a stark contrast to that suffocating dark. That thing changed me. I don't sleep easy anymore. My dreams replay the shape, its claws now tracing my name, and mirrors sometimes flicker, showing her, never gone, always watching. I dug into the house's past, scouring library records. It stood on land tied to old rites, a place where grief festered into something else. They said something lives there, something that doesn't let go. A woman had died there, unnamed, her rage bound to the walls, seeking others to share her pain. I still feel it sometimes, like it's waiting for me. My throat aches at night, a phantom squeeze, and the rosary stays close, though its warmth feels fainter. I've burned sage, prayed louder, but the whispers creep back, soft, insistent, calling from nowhere. The house is empty now, windows boarded, but I won't return. I'll never go back, but it knows I'm here. I check locks, avoid shadows, but the fear remains. What if it doesn't need the house? The prayer saved me once, but its words feel thinner now, like a shield wearing down. Something followed me, patient, certain, and I wonder if I'll ever outrun its reach. Noah's pencil scratched the page, drawing a shadow he didn't know until it looked back from his wall. He was 10, living in a quiet Ohio suburb, his room a mess of comics and memories of Rusty, his dog, gone last spring. The house was old, its floors creaking under moonlight, and Noah hadn't slept well since Rusty died. At night he'd sketch, heroes, monsters, anything to keep the quiet away. But tonight his hand moved on its own, tracing a tall, thin figure with no face. Around 2 a.m., Noah woke screaming, his voice tearing through the house. His parents, Tom and Lisa, rushed in, finding him curled against the headboard, eyes wide. "It's here," he sobbed, pointing to the corner. Nothing there, just his desk, a soccer ball, moonlight pooling on the floor. Tom flicked on the light, kneeling beside him. "Buddy, it's just a dream," he said. But Noah shook his head, tears falling. The air felt wrong, heavy, like someone had just left. Lisa checked the window, locked, curtains still. But Noah's drawing lay on the floor, the shadows lines darker, smudged as if touched. She tucked it away, heart uneasy, and sat with Noah, his small hand gripping hers. Outside, the wind hissed, and for a moment she swore the hall light dimmed, not flickering but fading, like something stood in its way. Morning came, gray and cold, but Noah wouldn't leave his bed. "I saw it," he insisted, voice small, but sure. A man in the corner, and Rusty was with him. Lisa's heart sank. Rusty, their golden retriever, had been hit by a car 6 months ago. "Sweetie, Rusty's gone," she said, stroking his hair, but Noah's eyes stayed fixed, unblinking. He wasn't gone. His eyes were wrong, all bright. Tom checked the room, humoring him. No footprints, no marks, just Noah's toys scattered, like always. "It's just nightmares," Tom said, though his voice wavered, unsure. But as he moved Noah's desk, he froze. A scratch on the wall, 3 jagged lines, fresh, too deep for a kid's nails. Kids, he muttered, blaming Noah's art supplies. But his hands shook as he covered it with a poster. That night, Noah slept with the light on, clutching Rusty's old collar. Lisa stayed up, scrolling her phone, but the house creaked louder, not settling but pacing. Around midnight, Noah's toy truck rolled across the floor. No batteries, no push. Lisa's breath caught, watching it stop by the door, where a faint glow pulsed. Not moonlight, but colder, sharper. She grabbed the truck, tossing it into a drawer, but the glow lingered, and in the hall mirror, she saw it. A flicker, not her face, but something taller, leaning closer. She blinked, and it was gone, but her skin crawled, knowing Noah hadn't dreamed it all. Noah's screams woke them again, sharper, raw. He pointed to the corner, sobbing about strange shapes and Rusty's ghost. Tom yanked the light on, but it sputtered, casting jagged shadows that moved when they shouldn't. Noah clutched Rusty's collar, whispering, "He's leading me somewhere." Lisa's stomach twisted. Rusty stood there in the doorway, not golden but gray, eyes glowing like frost, tail still. "Noah, stay here," Tom barked, grabbing a bat, but the dog turned, padding into the hall, its steps silent, leaving wet, paw prints on the wood. Lisa followed, heart pounding, as the prints led to the basement door, always locked, now ajar. The air grew thick, cold, smelling of damp earth and fur. Noah slipped past, too fast, calling, "Rusty!" down the stairs, in the basement. Noah froze, staring at a wall where his drawing, the Shadow Man, hung, taped, though no one had moved it. The figure's lines bled, ink pooling, and Rusty's shape flickered beside it, eyes locked on Noah. Tom swung the bat, hitting nothing, but the wall cracked, revealing a small box, old, rusted, with Noah's name scratched on it. Lisa grabbed it, hands burning as the lights died, and a voice, not Noah's, whispered, "Open." The dog lunged, not at them, but through, vanishing into the dark, and the shadows stretched, taller, closer, circling Noah's trembling form. Lisa screamed his name, pulling him back, knowing whatever called wasn't Rusty. It was older, hungrier, and it wanted her son. They fled upstairs, Noah clinging to Lisa, the box still in her hand. Tom and Lisa worried it wasn't just Noah's mind and something was in the house. Dawn broke, pale, but the basement door stayed shut, its lock fused, unyielding. The box held a photo, Rusty, alive, but with a shadow behind him, tall, faceless, like Noah's drawing. They moved Noah to his aunt's, hoping distance would help, but he kept sketching. Always the shadow, always Rusty, eyes too bright. Lisa searched Ohio records, finding whispers of their house. A child lost decades ago, toys moving, paw prints with no source. "It's not ours," Tom said, voice hollow, but Noah's drawings piled up, each darker, signed, "Come back." Noah sleeps, with the light on now, Rusty's collar under his pillow. The family's scared, unsure if it's Noah's grief or something real. The house is quiet, but Lisa sees it. Faint scratches, glowing eyes in the yard, waiting. What's worse than losing your dog? Seeing him return, and knowing he brought something with him. The subway's rumble faded as I emerged onto Manhattan streets, my duffel bag heavy with the weight of a new start. At 20, I'd landed a scholarship to a small New York college, trading rural quiet for the city's pulse. I moved into a dorm in New York, an old building with creaky floors. The dorm, A century-old brick heap on the campus edge smelled of wax and time, its narrow halls lit by flickering bulbs. Something felt off the first night, like the air was too thick. My room, a cramped single on the 5th floor, had a window, stuck shut, framing a view of neon signs and shadows. I unpacked, taping photos to the wall when the desk lamp blinked. Off, then on, unplugged. The lights in my room kept turning on and off by themselves. I checked the cord, heart skipping, but found no fault. A faint whiff of sulfur stung my nose, gone before I could place it. There was this weird smell sometimes, like sulfur coming from nowhere. The hall was silent, my neighbor's doors closed, yet footsteps echoed above, heavy and uneven, in a rhythm no human could match. I laughed it off, old wiring, city quirks, but my skin prickled as if the room itself sized me up. That night, sleep came hard, broken by a hum from the walls. Not electric but alive, like a heartbeat under the plaster. Days blurred into weeks, but the dorm's quirks sharpened. The lights didn't just flicker. They'd go out completely, then snap back on. I'd be studying, pen scratching, when darkness swallowed the room, only to return with the lamp blazing, hotter than it should be. That sulfur smell came back stronger, like something burned nearby. It lingered in corners, thickest near my closet, where the door sometimes creaked open an inch, unlatched. I taped it shut, but the tape peeled by morning, curling like it mocked me. My laptop glitched too, files moving, essays I'd written reshuffled to folders labeled with dates I didn't recognize, like 1912. Something was messing with my stuff, moving things around. My keys vanished from the desk, reappearing. Under the bed, coated in dust that wasn't mine. At night, the footsteps returned, now pacing my ceiling, deliberate, as if counting my breaths. I asked my neighbor, a nervous chem major, but he swore his room was quiet. Yet I caught him eyeing the hall, pale, like he felt it too. The hum grew louder, a chorus of whispers weaving no words, just intent. Cold, curious, close. I started sketching the sounds, jagged lines on paper, desperate to make sense of it. This wasn't a dorm. It was a cage, and I was its study. Midterms. Hidden sleep became a luxury. The sulfur smell got so bad I'd wake up choking on it. One night I jolted awake, the room pitch black, lamp dead. Something was in the room with me. I could feel it watching. My chest tightened, not panic but a presence, heavy, pressing my ribs. The air buzzed, and my sketches, pinned to the wall, fluttered, tearing free, floating mid-air before dropping. A shadow moved, not cast but alive, pooling by the closet, its edges fraying into limbs. I grabbed my phone, flashlight shaking, and saw it. Eyes, not human, glinting in the dark, fixed on me. It wasn't just a feeling. Something was really there. The closet door slammed open, tape snapping, and the sulfur surged, burning my throat. Whispers turned to a voice, low, garbled, saying my name like it tasted it. I scrambled back, knocking books down, but the shadow stretched, touching the bed's edge. My dorm key, lost days ago, skittered across the floor, stopping at my feet, etched with new scratches, symbols, like my sketches. The hum roared, walls trembling, and I knew this thing wasn't trapped here. It chose this place, and now it chose me. I couldn't stay. I tried to ignore it, but it kept getting worse. The entity grew bold. Lights didn't just flicker, they sparked, scorching the ceiling. Something was trying to get me, I swear. I found a campus priest, hands trembling as I spilled everything. He gave me salt and a prayer, his eyes wary, like he'd heard this before. Back in my room, I scattered salt lines, whispering words I barely believed. The hum faltered, the shadow recoiling, but it laughed, a sound like glass breaking inside my skull. Packing was frantic, clothes stuffed into bags as the closet rattled, sulfur choking the air. I left that dorm and never went back. I crashed, with a friend downtown, her couch a lifeline. That place changed me. I don't trust small spaces anymore. My sketches, saved in a notebook, curl at the edges now, symbols shifting when I'm not looking. I researched the dorm, built over a factory fire, dozens dead, their names erased. They said something lives there, something angry. My key, kept, as proof grows heavier. It scratches deeper, like it's still writing. I still feel it sometimes, like it's not done with me. At night, sulfur stings my nose, faint, and my lamp flickers, just once. I pray now, but the words feel thin, and I wonder if I left something behind or brought it with me. Claire checked into the Stanley Hotel for inspiration, but the silence wrote its own story. She'd come to Estes Park, Colorado alone, hoping the old hotel's eerie reputation would spark her next novel. At 38, Claire was a writer, chasing deadlines and ghosts of her own, sleepless nights, memories of a life left behind in Chicago. The Stanley's grand halls with their polished wood and faded glamour felt alive, whispering under the weight of a century's secrets. That first night, around 3 a.m., a scratching sound woke her, a slow, deliberate clawing at her door. Her room, 217, was high on the 4th floor, far from the lobby's hum. Claire sat up, heart thudding, the velvet curtains heavy in the moonlight. The sound came again, sharper, not wind, not pipes, but purposeful, like something wanted in. She slipped out of bed, bare feet cold on the hardwood, and pressed her ear to the door. Silence now, but the air felt thick, charged, as if holding its breath. She glanced at the dresser mirror, and her pulse spiked. The glass was foggy, not with steam, but a haze that swirled, faintly outlining a shape, low and four-legged. Claire blinked, and it cleared, but her skin prickled, the room smaller, the shadows deeper. "No way, that's just fatigue," she muttered, forcing a laugh, but her voice sounded thin, swallowed by the walls. Whatever scratched wasn't random, it knew she was listening, and it wasn't done telling its tale. Claire's hand trembled as she gripped the doorknob, cold seeping into her palm. She cracked the door open, peering into the empty hallway. Nothing, just dim lights and carpet stretching into shadow. The scratching had stopped, but a faint whine curled through the air. Not human, not machine. A sound that tugged at something primal. She stepped out, her phone's flashlight cutting a thin beam, revealing only closed doors and a brass elevator that hadn't moved. "Hello?" she whispered, feeling foolish, but the silence pressed back, heavy, alive. Back in her room, Claire locked the door, heart still racing. She checked the floor, no marks, no dust disturbed. But as she turned, her laptop flickered, its screen showing a photo she hadn't taken. The hallway, empty, but with a faint blur near her door. Low, like an animal crouching, she slammed it shut, breath hitching, and the scratching returned. Not at the door now, but the wall behind her bed. Slow, rhythmic, clawing deeper. Claire grabbed a pen, scribbling notes, her writer's reflex. But the pen leaked, ink pooling into a shape, jagged like a paw print. Her stomach twisted. She swept the desk clear, but the mirror caught her eye again, its haze thicker, the shape clearer. Not just legs, but eyes, glowing, fixed on her. A low growl hummed through the room. not from the walls, but inside her head, saying, "Stay." Claire, back to the bed, clutching her phone, knowing whatever was here wasn't just scratching. It was marking her, claiming the space she dared to enter. Claire didn't sleep. Eyes locked on the door as the scratching grew frantic, now circling the room, door, walls, ceiling, clawing like a cage. At dawn, she stumbled to the front desk, pale, asking about the noise. The clerk, an older man with tired eyes, listened, then leaned in. "That's probably our ghost dog," he said, half smiling. "Belonged to a guest years ago, still wanders." Claire's laugh choked. She wanted to believe it, but the growl in her head said otherwise. She demanded details, and he shrugged, pointing to a faded photo on the wall. A black Labrador, collar gleaming, next to a woman whose face was scratched out. "She disappeared," he added, voice low. "Room 217 maybe." Claire's blood froze. Her room. Back upstairs, she found scratches on the floor, faint, arcing like a dog's claws leading to the bathroom. The mirror there was cracked, not hazy now, but showing a shadow. Paws, eyes, teeth bared, lunging. Claire ran, grabbing her bag, but the door jammed, the handle ice cold, and the growl surged, shaking the walls. A collar lay on her bed, old leather tagged Max. Not there before. She threw it, and the lights died, plunging her into dark, the scratching now a roar, paws pounding behind her. She forced the door open, sprinting to the lobby, but the photo was gone. The clerk too, only a note. "He stays." Claire's scream echoed, knowing Max wasn't alone. Something rode with him, older, hungrier, tied to her now. Claire checked out, tires screeching as she left the Stanley, but the growl lingered, faint, in her ears. She was shaken, wondering if it was just a dog or something darker haunting the hotel. At a diner miles away, she searched the Stanley's history. Tales of Room 217, a guest lost in the 50s, her dog left behind, seen ever since. No mention of Max, but whispers of worse. Shadows that followed guests home. Her laptop glitched, showing that photo again. Max, eyes blazing, the woman's face now clear, staring straight at Claire. She deleted it, hands shaking, but her motel mirror, fogged that night, claw marks faint on its edge. Claire burned her notes, hoping to break the tie, but her dreams filled with paws, teeth, a voice saying, "Mine." She avoids hotels now, checks mirrors less, but the scratching follows, faint, persistent. Under her floorboards, the Stanley's reputation wasn't just stories, and Claire knew something had marked her. What's worse than a ghost dog? One that brings its master, and they both want you to stay. The wind howled outside as I set up my CPR dummies in a dim basement room, my new gig as a part-time instructor at 32. The community center, a sagging relic in a forgotten corner of town, had been a funeral home decades ago, its walls still whispering of grief. I was teaching CPR in an old building that used to be a funeral home. The air felt heavy, tinged with antiseptic and something older, like sorrow soaked into the bricks. The place always felt wrong, like it didn't want us there. My first class hadn't started, but the silence broke. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, creaked above, though the building was locked. I heard footsteps upstairs when no one else was around. I froze, pulse quickening, as the steps paused, then resumed, circling. The lights flickered, casting shadows that stretched too far, and a chill brushed my neck, not from the drafty windows. This wasn't just an old building. It remembered, and it was awake. Classes began, but the strangeness grew. The footsteps kept happening, always when I was alone. They'd pace the hall above during breaks, heavy, never rushing, as if measuring the space. I checked upstairs once, flashlight trembling, but found only dust and locked doors, yet the air, pressed against me thick with intent. Everyone knew the place was haunted. No one liked staying late. My students whispered of cold spots, their dummies' eyes seeming to follow them, though I dismissed it as nerves. One evening, a mirror in the basement cracked, splitting my reflection into jagged pieces. Something was there, you could feel, it watching. The antiseptic scent turned sour like decay creeping through vents, and my notes, lesson plans, schedules, scattered across the floor, untouched. Shadows moved in corners, not cast but alive, folding into shapes, tall, vague, waiting. I clutched my instructor badge, heart pounding, as the footsteps stopped directly overhead, silent now, but closer. This wasn't imagination. Something shared this space, and it knew my name. The hauntings intensified, no longer subtle. The ghosts weren't just stories, they were real. One night, locking up, the footsteps followed me, matching my stride down the hall, invisible but relentless. You'd hear them, feel them, like they wanted you to know. My breath fogged, though. The heater hummed, and the dummies, lined against the wall, shifted, their plastic hands twitching, eyes glinting under dim lights. A voice whispered, not from air, but inside my skull, soft, mournful, saying, "Stay." I found an old ledger in the storage closet, pages brittle, listing names, funeral home clients, dates stretching back a century, some scratched out with ink that smelled of rot. The lights surged, bulbs popping, and the footsteps thundered, now below, shaking the floor. A shadow loomed in the cracked mirror, not mine. A woman, pale, her dress stained, staring through me. My chest tightened, not fear alone, but her grief, spilling into me. This wasn't a prank. They lingered, bound to this place, and I was there, bridge. I quit the next day, leaving my dummies behind. I got out, but it didn't feel like leaving. A new job at a bright gym felt safer, but the shadows followed, faint at first. That place changed me. I don't like basements anymore. My dreams replay the footsteps, the woman's stare, her grief now mine, heavy in my chest. I burned my notes, but the ledger's names haunt me, etched in memory, whispering when lights dim. I looked up the building, closed now, condemned, its funeral past a local legend. They said something stays there, something that doesn't rest. Old photos showed faces like hers, forgotten, tied to unmarked graves beneath. I still feel it sometimes, like it's watching me. My new classroom's lights flicker, just once, and footsteps echo in empty halls, distant but clear. I carry salt now, check corners, but the chill remains. What if they didn't stay behind? The building's gone, but its ghosts know me, and I fear they'll call again. Mia and Jake were laughing over wine when her painting crashed to the floor, unhooked. They'd moved into a Portland apartment 3 weeks ago, a cozy loft with creaky floors and a view of Oregon's rainy nights. At 29, Mia was a painter, her canvases full of shadows and light, while Jake, 31, was an engineer, all logic and blueprints, skeptical of the vibes Mia swore she felt in their new place. The building was old, its brick walls holding stories no one had told them. Yet, that night, they'd been joking about ghosts and demons, teasing the idea of something lurking in the dark. Mia had laughed, spilling wine, saying, "Maybe we should summon one, see who shows up." Jake smirked, raising his glass. "Bring it, Beelzebub." Their voices echoed in the loft, too loud for the quiet rain outside. Then the painting fell, a dark swirl of Mia's, all jagged lines now face down on the hardwood, its frame cracked. Mia froze, wineglass trembling. "That wasn't me," she whispered, eyes darting to the wall, nail intact, no reason for the fall. Jake chuckled, nervous, picking it up. "Chill, it's just loose screws." But the air shifted, heavier, like the room had exhaled. Mia's canvas back on the wall looked wrong, its shadows deeper, moving under the lamplight as if something stared back. The rain tapped harder, and for a moment, the loft's lights dimmed, not flickering, but sinking, like a breath drawn in. Mia grabbed Jake's arm, her pulse loud in her ears, knowing their joke had landed somewhere it shouldn't have. Mia couldn't shake the chill, her eyes on the painting, its lines now jagged, alive. Around midnight, the bedroom door slammed shut with a bang, no draft to blame. Jake jolted awake, swearing, while Mia clutched the sheets, heart hammering. "What the hell was that?" she hissed, staring at the door, its handle still, the room. Too quiet now, rain muffled like a held breath. Jake got up barefoot, checking the windows. Locked, no wind. "Old building, babe," he said, but his voice cracked, eyes darting to the corners. Then came the pressure, a heavy, invisible weight pressing on their chests, like the air itself was watching. Mia's ears popped, her skin tingling, as if someone stood inches away, unseen but close, too close. She grabbed her phone, flashlight shaking, and scanned the room. Nothing, just their bed, her easel, Jake's toolbox. But the mirror by the closet caught her light and she froze. A shadow flicked across it, tall, formless, gone when she blinked. "Jake, you saw that, right?" she whispered, but he was at the door, yanking it open. The hall was empty. Lights, steady, but Mia's canvas propped in the living room had changed again, ink bleeding, forming a face not hers, not human. A low hum started, not from pipes but deeper, vibrating in her bones, whispering, "You called." Jake slammed the door shut again, locking it, but the hum grew, and the painting's frame rattled, as if something inside wanted out. Mia's breath hitched. She'd painted shadows before, but never one that answered back. The hum became a growl, shaking the loft's walls, and Mia's painting fell again, canvas tearing. Mia and Jake stood frozen, terrified they'd invited something by joking about demons. The pressure crushed now, air so thick they gasped, knees buckling. Mia's flashlight caught the mirror again. Its glass rippled, the shadow clearer, not just formless but sharp, eyes glinting, watching. "Jake," she screamed, but he was at the door, pounding it. It wouldn't budge, locked from the outside. A whisper slithered through, "Not theirs. You asked." Mia's easel tipped, paint spilling, pooling into claws, a shape forming on the floor. Jake grabbed a wrench, swinging at nothing, but the lights flickered, plunging them into strobe-like dark, each flash showing the shadow closer. By the bed, the closet, their feet, Mia's phone died, its screen cracked, showing a photo they hadn't taken. Their loft, empty, but with eyes in the mirror, red, unblinking. The door flew open, no touch, slamming against the wall, and the pressure eased, but the growl stayed, circling. Mia ran to her paints, finding one canvas untouched, blank, but her brush moved, not by her, sketching a figure, tall, horned, laughing. Jake pulled her back, shouting, "We're leaving!" But the hall mirror shattered as they passed, shards cutting Mia's arm, blood dripping, mixing with the paint on the floor. The whisper roared, "Stay," and the loft's windows rattled, rain now black, streaking like ink. They stumbled to the car, but Mia felt it, eyes on her neck, not gone, just waiting, tied to her now, to them. Dawn broke, rain slowing, but Mia and Jake didn't sleep, huddled in a motel miles away. They couldn't shake the fear that something had followed them from their careless words. The cut on Mia's arm throbbed, its edges dark, like ink under skin. Jake searched Portland's history. Their building, a warehouse once, tied to accidents. Whispers of deals gone wrong. Shadows seen in windows. No answers, just questions. And Mia's paints, packed in haste, leaked in her bag, staining clothes with claws, eyes. At the motel, Mia tried sketching, hoping to calm her nerves, but her lines twisted, forming that figure again, unbidden. Jake burned the sketch, ashes hissing, but the mirror in their room fogged, not steam, but breath, outlining a shape neither spoke of. They moved again, to a friend's couch, but the hum followed, faint, in walls, in dreams. Mia's new paintings, bled unopened tubes dripping, and Jake's tools shifted, lining up at night, pointing to the door. They don't joke about demons now, don't look in mirrors long. Their apartment stayed empty, but they felt marked, like something waited for them to slip again. Mia sees it sometimes. Red eyes in rain, a shadow in her sketchbook, patient. Jake hears it, a whisper in traffic, calling their names. What do you do when a joke opens a door, and what comes through knows you better than you know yourself? The kettle's whistle cut through the stillness of our new home, a modest cabin tucked against a pine forest's edge. At 28, I'd moved here with my husband, Mark, chasing a slower life after city chaos. We just settled into our new house. Everything was supposed to be perfect. That night, Mark was at a late shift, leaving me alone with the creak of settling wood and the moon's pale glow. Something felt off, like the night was too heavy. I poured tea, glancing out the kitchen window when I froze. Two glowing orbs were floating outside just beyond the porch. They hovered, pale blue, pulsing softly. Not fireflies or lanterns, but alive, deliberate. My breath caught, the mug slipping to the counter. The air thickened, carrying a faint hum, like static before a storm. I blinked, but they remained, drifting closer, their light casting shadows that twisted unnaturally across the lawn. The forest beyond was silent, no crickets, no wind. Just those orbs, watching. My pulse raced, not just from fear but a pull, as if they knew me. This wasn't a trick of light. Something was out there, and it wanted my attention. The orbs didn't leave. They stayed out there, moving slowly like they were studying me. I backed from the window, heart hammering, but their glow seeped through the glass, painting the kitchen in sickly hues. It scared me so bad, I couldn't move for a while. My phone was upstairs, useless, and the landline hummed with static when I tried it. The hum outside grew louder, now a low drone vibrating the floorboards under my bare feet. I flicked on every light, but the bulbs flickered, dimming as the orbs pulsed brighter. A photo frame, us at our wedding, tipped over, glass cracking as if pushed. The air grew sharp, tinged with ash, not sulfur but close, like a fire long dead. Shadows stretched inside, not mine, forming shapes, tall, thin, with no faces. I whispered Mark's name, a reflex, but the silence swallowed it. The orbs drifted to the porch edge, their light now sharp, cutting through curtains. My chest tightened, not just fear but a weight, as if they pressed against my mind, searching. I locked the door, hands shaking, but the bolt felt flimsy. They weren't just lights. They were alive, and they weren't leaving. I hid in the living room, curtains drawn, but the glow pierced through, relentless. Those orbs weren't random. They wanted something, Their drone became a voice, not words, but a pull, urging me to open the door. I was so scared. It felt like they were inside my head. My skin crawled as if fingers brushed my neck, cold and deliberate. The house groaned, beams creaking, and a mirror on the wall fogged, showing not me but outlines. Two figures, blurred, their eyes matching the orb's hue. I clutched a knife from the kitchen, its weight useless but grounding. The orbs pressed against the window now, glass creaking, their light burning my eyes. Photos slid off shelves, papers swirling, caught in a wind that wasn't there. A whisper coiled in my ear, my name, spoken like a secret. I screamed, voice raw, and the lights died, plunging me into black, save for their glow. Now inside, hovering inches away, my heart roared, but I felt it. Their intent, not malice but hunger, ancient, endless. They weren't here by chance. They'd come for me, and the house was no shield. Dawn broke, gray and fragile. The orbs faded, their hum silenced, as if the light reclaimed the house. I never saw them again after that night. I stumbled outside, air clean, forest alive with birdsong, but my hands shook, knife still gripped. That night changed me. I don't look out windows anymore. We moved weeks later to a city apartment high above the ground, yet I checked locks thrice, curtains always closed. I searched local records, finding tales of lights in these woods. Hunters, lost, their gear found glowing, unmarked. They said something lives out there, something that watches. Old settlers spoke of guides, not spirits but older, tied to the land's roots, seeking keepers. I still feel it sometimes, like it's waiting for me. My dreams trace their light, blue and cold. And once, a photo from our cabin. Left, behind, arrived in the mail, my face scratched out, orbs faint in the background. I'll never go back, but it knows where I am. The forest is far, but at night a hum lingers, soft, patient, and I fear what follows when the dark returns. And there you have it, 18 stories that peel back the veil between our world and something darker, leaving echoes of fear you can't quite shake. From haunted homes to strangers who know too much, these tales remind us how thin the line is between safety and the unknown. But don't turn on all the lights just yet. The shadows have more to tell. We've only scratched the surface of the nightmares people have lived through. And trust me, what's coming next will grip you even tighter. Imagine voices that shouldn't speak, places that trap you, and moments where your gut screams to run. If these stories kept you up, the ones ahead will haunt your dreams. So, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and join me for the next chapter of terror. Share your own creepy encounters below. Maybe your story will inspire our next dive into the dark. Until then, sleep lightly, check your locks, and keep an eye on the corners of your room. The night's not done with us yet, and I'll be back with more to keep you hooked. See you in the shadows.